I'm Katherine Watts, a registered dietitian, and today I want to talk about something that has been all over social media lately, berberine, which people are calling nature's Ozempic. Now, that might sound like hype, but there's actually really science behind it. I'm here to break down what the research actually says about berberine and whether it's true to your heart. So let's dive in. Berberine is a plant alkaloid, or an active compound that comes from the roots and bark of several plants. It's been used in traditional Chinese medicine for thousands of years, primarily for gut issues like infections and diarrhea. What's interesting is that berberine tastes incredibly bitter, which is actually a sign it contains active compounds. Now, what's getting people excited lately isn't the digestive benefits, it's the newer applications. We're seeing research on berberine for blood sugar control, cholesterol management, weight loss, cancer prevention, and even anti-aging. There's a lot of claims, which is exactly why we need to look at the actual evidence. Not all these claims are equally supported by the research. You may be asking why I chose berberine. Well, over the past year or so, berberine has been going crazy viral on TikTok and Instagram. Health influencers are calling it nature's Ozempic because people are seeing weight loss. Everyone from fitness coaches to wellness gurus are recommending it. But here's the thing, hype doesn't always equal evidence. So, what does the research actually say? Is it really good for your heart? So, that's why I chose berberine. It's also a perfect example of how traditional medicine meets modern science. Berberine has been used for thousands of years, but now we have the tools to understand exactly how it works at the molecular level. So let's take a look at that mechanism. Clinical trials use 500 milligrams 2 to 3 times a day for a total of 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams. That's a high dose because berberine has poor bioavailability. Only 1 to 5% actually get absorbed. Your gut has a bouncer mechanism called the P glycoprotein pump that kicks most of it back out, so you need high doses to get a therapeutic effect. Those high doses come with a cost. GI distress is the most common. Diarrhea, constipation, bloating, cramping. Some people tolerate it fine, others have to stop taking it. There's also the mTOR trade-off. Chronic AMPK activation can theoretically interfere with muscle protein synthesis. That's a concern researchers are watching. And medication interactions matter. Berberine inhibits the CYP3A4, a liver enzyme that processes statins, blood thinners, and diabetic drugs. So if you're on these medications, berberine can change how much medication stays in your system. That's why you need to tell your doctor. Berberine is what's called pleiotropic, meaning it hits multiple biological pathways at the same time. It breaks it down into digestible pieces. Berberine doesn't just do one thing in your body, it does several things simultaneously, and that's why it's effective for cardiovascular health. We're going to get into it a little bit more on the next slide. First, let's talk about the metabolic master switch. Berberine inhibits something called the mitochondrial complex. That creates a stress signal in your cells. Basically, it tells your cells, hey, we're running low on energy, and your cells respond by activating the AMPK pathway, which is your body's master metabolic switch. When AMPK turns on, it shifts your body from fat storage to fat burning, but it goes straight after cholesterol in multiple ways. Look at the metabolic pathway diagram. Berberine increases LDLR expression. That's the number of receptors on your liver cells that grab LDL cholesterol out of your bloodstream. It's different from statins. Statins reduce cholesterol production, but berberine increases the liver's ability to pull cholesterol out of the blood. And it does this by a pathway called PCSK9 inhibition, which PCSK9 is actually a protein that destroys LDL receptors. Berberine shuts that down. Then there's the vascular health. Berberine improves endothelial function, or the lining of your blood vessels. It does this by increasing nitric oxide production and reducing oxidative stress. This means better blood vessel dilation and more flexible arteries. So in one supplement, you've got fat burning activated, cholesterol clearance enhancement, and vascular health being improved. Sounds like a magic pill for your cardiovascular system, right? Here's what the research actually shows. Systematic reviews confirm that berberine significantly reduces total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, and triglycerides, and it appears to do this while potentially increasing HDL, which is the good cholesterol. That's actually impressive because most interventions trade one off against another. The comparative analysis suggests berberine can be a viable alternative or addition for patients who can't tolerate statins or who have mild dyslipidemia. The meta-analysis combines multiple placebo-controlled trials and shows significant improvements in fasting blood glucose and A1C. So why does that matter for heart disease? Because berberine reduces insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is one of the primary drivers of cardiovascular damage in people with metabolic syndrome. You're hitting a root cause, not just a symptom. The evidence shows modest but statistically significant reductions in both systolic and diastolic blood pressure. The mechanism is improved endothelial function. That's the lining of your blood vessels. You also get reduced systemic inflammation. Now let's look at the actual numbers from the trials. This is real data from real people. Look at the LDL cholesterol first. This is what happens when people take berberine by itself. 25% reduction with berberine alone. That's significant. For comparison, many statins get you a 20 to 30% reduction depending on the dose. Triglycerides drop by 0.367 millimoles per liter on average, and your triglycerides matter for heart health because elevated triglycerides are an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Fasting glucose came down by 0.515 millimoles per liter. Better fasting glucose means better metabolic health. Waist circumference also decreased by 3.27 centimeters on average. Losing abdominal fat means reducing inflammation that damages your heart. The point is this, the hype isn't coming out of nowhere. People are seeing real metabolic improvements. That's verifiable and measurable. That's why berberine is trending. But these improvements, are they enough to prevent heart attacks and strokes? Well, that's where the evidence gets a bit murkier. So here's an honest assessment. Berberine has strong evidence for some things and limited for others. Strong evidence for that cholesterol improvement through the LDLR expression. Mechanism works and the data is solid, but there's limited evidence for actually preventing heart attacks and strokes. We have strong evidence for blood sugar control that is comparable to metformin on impact on A1C, but limited evidence for real-world benefit. The doses needed can cause GI problems and people would stop taking it. Strong biochemical evidence for weight loss through the PPAR gamma and the UCP1 activation, but limited evidence for actual results. Weight loss in trials is modest, 2 to 5 pounds over 12 weeks. Long-term data is missing, so bottom line, berberine improves metabolic markers, the numbers get better, but we're still waiting on proof that these improvements prevent diseases. So berberine is safe. It improves metabolic markers. That's verified, but it does not replace statins for high-risk heart patients. Standard drugs are still essential. It's most useful for three groups: metabolic syndrome, statin intolerance, mild metabolic syndrome in early stages. View it as supplementary treatment, addition to a lifestyle and medical therapy, not a replacement. And always consult your doctor. Berberine may interfere with other medications through that CYP3A4 enzyme. They need to know you're taking it. Plus, more trials are needed for long-term outcomes, but what we know now is solid enough to discuss with your healthcare provider if you have metabolic issues. These are my references. Thanks for listening.